Hey guys!
Hey everybody!
We have just completed planting the garden to get ready for our year of letting the land rest.
That's right. That's right. So we not vowed, we just following God's scripture to let the land rest. Originally when we moved here 6 years ago,
No.
8 years, whatever.
8 years.
8 years ago, we were going to let the land rest according to what God told the Israelites back in Deuteronomy when they were going into the promised land. That being said, we learned that really, as you dig further into Scripture, it's not our calendar, it's God's calendar. So we decided let's just follow His, because His is better than ours. So that being said, this year, starting tomorrow, starts the Shmita, the New Year, right? For a year of rest. So if you know anything about Scripture, have read any of it, so it's kind of cool. God told us, for our bodies, work 6 days, rest on the seventh day. God worked 6 days to make creation, rested on the seventh day. He told to let the land rest. Same thing. Work 6 years, let the land rest on the seventh year. So if you do this, one of the promises, the harvest and the provision will be enough to go into the seventh, into the 8th year. You ask, what does that look like for us? Don't know. We're just walking in the way He told us to, because God keeps His word. He made His covenant with the Israelites by being followers of Jesus. We're grafted in to the promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Moses and Jacob. So we're walking in that. So what we've been doing all this year, based off of this, is preparing for letting the land rest. So what we've done is gone through and harvested out everything that we could, and we'll show you that here in a minute, and replanted it, because one of His sayings says, don't cultivate the land. Anything that grows on its own is free to you. So we cultivated and planted it before we're supposed to let it rest, in trust and faith that He's going to make it grow. It's going to last. We're going to be able to provide food for people, provide food for our family, and then we're going to intentionally not harvest all of it, let it go to seed, let it self-seed and grow again on its own, because He says if it grows on its own, you can use it. So that'll provide food for us next year, and possibly other families. Excuse me, there's gnats and mosquitoes. For that. So all that to say, Chrissy will turn the video around so I stop swatting gnats, and we'll show you what we've been doing. All right, guys. So we're going to kind of show you a brief overview, probably the little 5-minute snippet of Five Woods Life. So if you don't know already, Christy got her Christian herbalist certification. So that being said, using plants as medicine. God kind of created them that way, which is kind of cool. We got away from it as a culture. God's led us and put on our hearts and conviction to go back to that. We've been holistic health care for many years, using essential oils and natural stuff. Now we're moving more towards the plants. How do you use the plants for that? So that's going to be in addition to the other crops that we've got in the ground. That being said, the couple of the ones medicinals that we did, we've got, of course, culinary. We've got rosemary planted. We've got valerian that we've got out here. Valerian, you can use the leaves and the roots, so that's why we've got it in a deeper container. The nice part about it, it'll just keep growing. You can harvest it, use it medicinally, and Christy will follow up with how to use these different ones as we harvest them this coming fall and spring. Over here to the side, we put in asparagus this year, 2-year-old crowns. The idea is, I know it looks like a little jumble mess, and the fall, once the fronds, is what they're called, starts dying off, we'll cut them off at the ground, put compost over it, and then it will regrow next year. From my understanding, it's the first time we've done asparagus, but it is a perennial plant that will grow for the next 20 years. So we've got 3 40-foot rows, so we've got 120 feet of asparagus. That being said, I think the first year you can harvest it for about 3 or 4 days, up to a week. The next year for about 2 to 3 weeks. After that, 4 or 5 weeks. And so the progression just keeps going. So if you look at it, I mean, it's done pretty well for a first year. So we'll move on into the greenhouse. And excuse me, it's not a greenhouse because it's not heated, but it's more of a high tunnel. So over on this side, we filled it up with 2 types of Napa cabbage. So they'll be a great storage crop, so they'll last a good time after we harvest them. But nutrient dense and goes real well. We've got romaine lettuce. We'll grow it as heads. Over here on this side, I've got red and green pak choi, and then another type of pak choi on the back that grows a little bit larger. We had one more bed that we decided we were going to use as part of our medicinal garden to let it just continue to grow. This past year I had cucumbers and tomatoes and peppers in here and didn't really utilize that bed. So this will be a good use of the bed, and it'll keep growing, and especially being in a structure like this, we can close the sides. It'll stay warmer longer. It won't get frost on it, and so hopefully we'll extend the season on the medicinal herbs. So in the back we have hyssop. Then next we have feverfew, and then we have culinary, we have stevia, and then up front for this the first time, I finally got some celery to germinate. So we put that in. Normally I plant in the cells of the blocks, and we still might do that tonight. It'll be direct seeded, so I've got to make sure I've got enough soil to finish filling those up so everything's up to height, and we can plant it. So that would give me a few thousand more plants, which would be kind of nice. Further out is another bed of rosemary, another bed of valerian. We've got pineapple sage and holy basil that's gone to seed, so we will save the seeds and replant that next year. That's another great medicinal herb that Christy will do a video on later on. That
We'll
way
just pot that up next year.
Yeah, this
not
will be
into
popped
the ground.
up. Out here we end up with wild, not sorrel, what was it?
Oh my goodness. It's high in omega-3s.
Anyway, moringa tree, thyme, we got lemon thyme, and then over on the other little pot, not looking too happy, but it is stinging nettle. So I actually need to go through and prune that off so that seeds don't drop and it starts growing everywhere because it becomes invasive. What the future envision for it, so this was our nursery we used this year, and it worked out fantastically by having the tables up, and we were able to continue to extend our succession planting of plants. We still have kales and collard plants for starts in here that are ready to go. What we're going to do is take these tables out. I've ordered grow bags, and then we're going to put soil on that and grow in the bags. So that way we're not growing in the land's still resting, but we are growing and able to grow and provide food for us and to store up and go from there. The other vision will be I'm gonna learn about aquaponics. We'll show you later on once we finish it. We're branching into mushrooms as well, and so learning the mycology behind all of that, of growing from liquid culture to grain to substrate, and then producing yummy mushrooms for people. So that's kind of the vision for this, the growing of plants, aquaponics, so we can grow food, fish and food. So as we move further up, and if you've not been here, we've got 4 tunnels that we grow in. These are high tunnels, caterpillar tunnels that we've got. All automated. I set it up years ago with automated irrigation, so we don't have to worry about that too much. It kind of simplifies it when you're a first generation farmer and being by yourself. We've got 5 of us, but we've got life too. We've got homeschool, we've got other stuff. So this helps simplify it for all of us. We've got 2 full beds of spinach that we transplanted in, because spinach will grow longer in the season. It likes cool weather. A bed of romaine and green crisp lettuce that will grow into the season and store well, so we're kind of excited about that. Over here we've got interplanted, to make use of space because we don't have a lot of space, I've got 3 rows of head lettuce, 4 varieties of it, but interplanted into it are radishes. So the radishes will be harvested out next week before they overshadow the canopy of the lettuce, and then the lettuce will finish filling in the canopy, which will help smother out and keep any weeds from germinating. Luckily we don't have many weeds in the fall, but that being said, use as much space as you can, be as good steward of it, and do an intercropping. So faster season with slower season. Today we cropped out, if you had seen before, we had spaghetti squash and butternut squash trellis vertically 2 rows. We stripped all of that out today and just transplanted in collards and kale in the back. Those will continue to grow. They're frost tolerant. So Lord willing, they will make a lot of greens, which will be yummy for fall. We've got a bed of chaga beets, bad germination, but we're not going to change it. We went back through and Ivy and Elijah helped today. We put another 3/4 bed of beets, and then the back half is some salad mix. This next bed is all salad mix, so in about 21 days to 30 days, it will be ready to harvest. And then we should be able to get a couple harvests off of that to extend us into the season. Then we've got white salad turnips that we're going to thin out and start eating on those. Purple kohlrabi for another half bed, and then we'll move further down. We've got 3 varieties of cabbage growing. The cabbage worms kind of messed me up a little bit, but we were able to get that under control and get that growing well. So they're actually starting to form up nicely, and they'll start forming heads, and that'll take us into the late fall. And then our last tunnel, we've got more head lettuce, more salad mix, and then I've got 2 beds of rutabagas planted, and then interplanted with those are purple top turnips and then radishes. So the rutabagas are about a 90-day crop. The radish and the turnip are about a 20-day to 50-day crop. So that being said, they'll come out before the rutabagas need the space to fill up the canopy and to grow to full size. So again, you intercropping, using as much space as you can. So do what they call understoring. The next bed, we've got a bunch of green onions, spring onions if you want to call it, or bunching onions. So they will be ready shortly and be nice and fresh and yummy. And then we've got our strawberry patch on the end that we're not going to show you because it is a royal mess right now. But that'll be cleaned up for next year. So, all right, so back here, I'm gonna say our back 40. In years past, we've tried to grow a garden here. It doesn't get enough light. That's our rooster, if you want to see that. So we got our rooster and all our laying hens, and they're all in a movable netting, so going around. But anyway, so we in past we've tried to grow a garden here, and it's done well, but it doesn't get light till later in the day, and it gets shade earlier in the afternoon. That being said, we learned last year, that we have elderberries, wild elderberries growing on the property, and they seem to like a full to part sun environment, especially the one that's growing really well up at the house. So we decided, you know what, why not make this into a little elderberry orchard or yard or whatever. So we were fortunate enough I took cuttings off of our elderberry tree, they rooted, and we ended up with 12 elderberry plants, which we just transplanted in, which works out great for in the fall. They're going to focus more on root development than they are green development up top, and then next year they'll grow a little bit more. So what we're praying for is some rain to irrigate them, to water them in. If not, we're going to bring our water tank and water them on the back of the tractor. But eventually we'll put another succession of elderberries, and then possibly move into putting some blackberry orchard, if you want to call it. It's not really an orchard. What would be blackberry? Just a, I'm going to say a vineyard of blackberries down here. But the nice part about it is, with them being elderberries and trees and shrubs, I can then pasture the chickens under it. They will keep the growth down and the bugs eaten, but they really won't be able to jump up and get many of the blackberries, and they won't be able to get to the elderberries. So that'll be kind of nice. And then in futuristic, we're looking at trying to get a couple little pigs for Ivy to use it to learn with and nurture, but then use those for sustainability for the farm, to consume byproducts from waste from the garden and turn that into compost, mixing it in with wood chips and stuff. So always trying to look ahead, look forward, and just praying for direction and being obedient to that.